Rugby League is back and so are the sin bins. Ladies and gentlemen, your first 2 games of Rugby League football are in the books for 2024. And if I'm being honest, there's not much to talk about. But we're going to pretend that there is anyway because, well, the hype is at an all-time high because all of us silly NRL fans, we have this thing right now and it's called hope. But both the Brisbane Broncos and Dolphins featured in trials yesterday. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get into them, as always, you know the drill. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. You cannot be a footy fan and not be subscribed to the official home of not just Australian sport, but also God's greatest winter game, that being Rugby League. And make sure to let me know what you thought of Saturday's trials in that comment section down below because that's what it's there for. But in the very first game of Rugby League for 2024, we saw the traditional little opening match, which gives us all a little bit of tease for the upcoming season. And can you believe this is the third one I've covered? The Brisbane Broncos, they got a win over the Wynnum Manly Seagulls, but unlike previous years, they didn't really put the hammer down until the final 10 minutes, the Broncos getting a 26-16 win over the Manly Seagulls there at wherever the bloody hell they played it yesterday. It was a pretty good game, if I'm being honest. I went into the expectations, probably too high expectations of the Brisbane Broncos. When you actually look at their side, there's not too many players in there. I think outside of Dean Mariner and Xavier Willison, that there's not another player really there who's going to be a part of the best 17 for the Brisbane Broncos come Las Vegas. But still, you think it's saying with NRL talent is going to bulldoze a Queensland Cup team, and they've done it the past 2 years. But shout out to Wynnum, they put up a bloody good effort. And if it wasn't for the final 10 minutes, then maybe we're sitting here laughing at the Broncos being in panic stations because, well, Wynnum got the W. But it wasn't to be thanks to the incredible effort of Tristan Sailor. He was man of the match in this fixture last year, and he did it again. A beautiful ball over the top to get his first try assist. Got another try assist with a banana kick, and then scored the match winner himself. He was absolutely phenomenal. Didn't even start at fullback, came off the bench. There's been all sorts of rumours that he's going to get pushed to the Super League, which I think would be a real shame because, to be honest, it wasn't until he took control of the Broncos, just showed how classy the Broncos were, and it was a weird match. It was also almost like both the teams were completing in the let's try not to complete a set challenge because the Brisbane Broncos, despite being down for most of the match, I thought that they were the better team. I thought Willison and Benjamin Dakura, they led that forward pack. They were making lots of easy meters through the middle, especially Blake Moser. If I'm being honest, I probably had too high of an expectations on him. I thought he was going to absolutely brain it, and I did say that I think there's a chance he could take that number 9 jersey away from Billy Walters. And look, he's got bloody 6 months. He's got some time to do that. But I did think he was a bit disappointing in this game. I thought Ben Dakura was as well. There's been so many hypes around him. And while Corey Jensen, I think, is the obvious start in the front row for the Brisbane Broncos, there's no shocker here that we all know that the Broncos have plans for Ben Dakura to be starting alongside Payne Haas and Paddy Carrigan in the middle for the Brisbane Broncos. They looked good, Brisbane. They didn't look as good in this match as they have the past 2 years, but like I said, it's almost like they just couldn't complete a set, and it is disappointing. I was interested to see how Kurt Falls would go. I haven't seen him in a few years. Didn't play at all in 2023, but of course we saw him debut in 2022 for the Penrith Panthers. He's ended up in Brisbane, and really the only knock on Brisbane this preseason has been around if Adam Reynolds could stay fit. And while I do think that, we're probably just trying to find a fault with the Brisbane Broncos by talking about that, if there's one spot that's up for grabs in this preseason, it is around those depth halves positions. Because if Reynolds goes down, obviously Jock Mann will be the next man up. But besides that, this could have been Kurt Fall's chance. And unfortunately, none of the halves in this game for the Brisbane Broncos really delivered. I know it's easy to blame a half when your team can't complete a set. But even their kicking game, outside of that first set where they, did the good kick and kept the Seagulls inside their 20, they really failed to build any pressure, the Brisbane Broncos. So I think they failed in that regard. Karapani, he had a decent game, a few too many errors for my liking. That could be said for most of the Brisbane Broncos players. He did try to put the young Seagull on his head though, so, if this was the NRL, it'd be a talking point, but it's only a trial, and I guess we couldn't have a return to rugby league without a sin bin. So, it looks like if they're going to follow suit, that the sin bins aren't going anywhere in 2024. That being said, they could have just judged it extra harshly because it is a little cheeky trial match. But if that happens in Vegas, the punters and the dribblers are going to be absolutely spewing. So congratulations to the Brisbane Broncos. It wasn't a dominant victory that I think a lot of us thought they were going to have. But, a win's a win. And I think that, Mariner had his moments. Willison, I thought, was probably the Brisbane Broncos' second best player around besides Tristan Sailor. But Sailor put on another show. And if he goes to the Super League, that'll be an absolute crime. In the second game, the Dolphins, they've kicked off 2024 in the best of ways. A 58-6 win over the Capras there in Rockhampton. And there's not too much to be said. Pretty much what we expected. The Dolphins did play a few more first graders than the Brisbane Broncos did. But the big talking point out of this match, at least for me, was Tessie New. Obviously, they've brought in Farnworth. Obviously, they've brought in Avarillo. But Tessie New, he looked like a man amongst boys out there. And, he's been a bit shorter. He's been a bit stockier. So maybe he's just thinned out. But holy heck, did he look like he was in a different stratosphere. The young fellow, Jack Bostock, he got the start on the wing. But I tell you what, obviously, Asako, Avarillo, the Hammer, and Farnworth. But that other outside back spot, if Tessie New's going to keep playing like that in the rest of these trial matches, you can't not pick him. Valence Tafare, he was pretty decent as well. Was getting involved a lot when it came to the yardage carries out of his own, and also scored a try there. Bit of a lucky one, but honestly, not too much to talk about. The Dolphins did well what these NRL teams should do against the Queensland Cup teams in the trial matches. Obviously, Brisbane's done the last 2 years. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. The Dolphins had a pretty good, pretty tough, pretty close trial match with the Capras last year. And this year, they put the foot down. But to be honest, the Dolphins will walk away happy from this. Obviously, a lot more happy than the Broncos will. I did say they played a few more first graders outside of Tessie New and Valence Tafare. The Dolphins didn't really play that many people anyway, if I'm being honest. So they're about the same. And look, maybe, I don't know too much about Queensland Cup. Maybe Wynnum Manly are a bunch of legends. And maybe, Capras aren't so good. But, you can only play with who plays in front of you. Did that even make sense? I'm not too sure. But the Dolphins will be very happy. The Brisbane, there's a lot to improve from them. If I'm being honest, no one really besides Tessie New lit the world on fire in these trial matches, which I guess is a bit disappointing. But maybe I just had too many high expectations. But ladies and gentlemen, you have a comment section there for a reason. Let me know what you thought about the trial matches. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I guess, as always, I'll see you in the next one.